Alrighty, so this is just a very quick tutorial on how to adjust a height map so that you get a clean result. So something like, for example, this is our end result where you've got one flat color for the areas that you don't necessarily want to have a lot of height map activity from. But then you have where you do want your height map coming through, you've got this like really sort of beautiful gradient between those high whites going down into gray. So this is what we're starting with, and you can tell that all this speckling is going to produce some uneven terrain surface, and it's not giving us much to work with. And of course, you've got these really nasty little pixelated black spots. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to start duplicating a few layers and using those to mask out and control different areas. So we'll just create one duplicate first off, and this guy is going to just control our white areas. So I'm going to go into Image, Adjustments, and Threshold. Threshold lets me very quickly grab a large swath of territory in terms of where my whites are. And so if I just go OK on that, and you'll see if I switch between my layers, I've got quite a bit of that white selected now. And if I then go to select color range, I just grab that white territory, and then I hide that layer, you'll see that what I've got now is I've got just those peaks and valleys. I could even potentially go into modify and feather, and if I feather that by say maybe 5 pixels, that smooths it out quite a bit, but we do lose a lot of our detail, so I might just undo that. It's up to you how much you're willing to lose there. Okay, so now that we've got a selection of just our white areas, I'm going to duplicate that original image again, and I'm going to invert my selection. So I just want to grab all of that surrounding territory, and I'll go to Image, Adjustments, and Posterize. And what Posterize does is, as you can tell, Posterize will give me one flat color depending on my level. It looks like 4 will give me most of one flat gray with just a few little black spots, which are pretty easy to clean up. So I'm just going to use my ink dropper there to grab that flat gray, and I want a square brush because I would really rather not have any kind of fall off on that. So I'll just use one square brush, and I'll just paint away all those little black spots. Because of my selection mask here, I'm not too fussed about accidentally painting over my white areas because I won't do anything to them anyways. So just clean that up. And this is great for most of that territory, obviously, but of course I have lost my river at some point. So we're going to have to do a few more things to get our river happening. So let's duplicate that layer again. And having duplicated that layer, what we can do now is let's actually bump up the contrast because we want to bring as much of that river out as possible. So bump that up. And I want to see what I can do. If I go posterize, let's see how close I can get. So there's one version there where I get most of the river. It's really kind of spotty, but I might be able to work with that. And I'll just sort of step through and see how much more I can get if I can get it any cleaner. It looks like this version, while spotty, on number 5, gives me the most to work with. So I'll leave that there. Again, I'm going to use color range to grab that river detail. And then if I just use my lasso now and I hold down Alt, I can deselect a lot of what I don't want. What's actually going to be way faster is if I go to Select, Modify, and I smooth. And I can smooth that by about 5 pixels. And you'll see that's already done a lot of that work for me. It's cleaned that up quite a bit. And if I select, let's see if we can't smooth that just a bit more. We'll just smooth it by, say, maybe another 3 pixels. It's not going to do too much more for me. I think at this point I probably need to actually just come in, hold down Alt with my selection tool selected, and that lets me start to remove some of these scungy areas. And let's go through and remove all that stuff, which is totally ugly and really not necessary. Trying to keep the integrity of that river as much as possible. There might be a few points where it's like, that's really bumpy and gross. I might just give it a bit of a shave. And cool. Alright, so that's pretty clean. Last bit. Clean, 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 clean. And almost done. Last little bit. Finally, just in here. Okay, and now what we can do with that is yet again, we'll do another duplicate, and we will do another posterize, and that gives us one flat color, which is great. We can also keep that selection on and go down here to turn on add layer mask, and that effectively says all I want to see is my river. So I'll drop that on that layer on top, and if I go to levels, I can just darken that slightly so that comes through a little bit more cleanly. Cool. I'll find out what layers that black spot's in. So those black spots are actually in this river layer. So I'll just come in with my brush and my ink dropper tool and just clean up those guys. Cool. And one of the last things you might want to do, totally up to you, is you might want to actually come in and create a bit of a gradient between our height map here and the mask, because you see it's such a hard line. So one thing you can do is, once again, duplicate this layer because we might want to come back to it later. I will bring this guy back and once again use him to select one specific color range. And then now I'll go with my eraser tool. I've got a very soft brush on that and a low opacity of about 26. And I'll just come in and I'll just erase along the edges just to get a little bit of that gradient back so it's not such a hard fall off. And I'll just do that around the image and I'll clean up if necessary and save that out as a new JPEG. So I'll just show you what that looks like. So this is the last step, would just be erasing those little edges around, and this is what it looks like when it's done. You see there's probably a couple of points here where I could still clean it up a little bit. And that is the end result, and that's how I would go about fixing a height map.